this is the FILvert. It's my father-in-law's 240SX convertible. It's a 1994. It's got an SR20D T-swap, 5-speed. It's been converted, obviously. Long story behind how this car came to be. Owned by my father-in-law, and then ultimately SR swapped by me. So back in 2009, I was unemployed and I was taking classes at the local community college. My buddy Bill texts me, he's like, "Hey, I found this convertible." I'm like, "Bill, you know that I have no money right now to buy a car." He's like, "Yeah, I know, it looks nice." Thanks, Bill. Well, little did I know, he also sent that message to my wife, who was working with her dad at the time. And earlier that day, he had mentioned to her, "Hey, I really liked your old white convertible," because my wife and I had a 93 240SX convertible before we were married. It was hers. But anyway, her dad was like, "Yeah, I think I want one. So if you guys run across one at all, let me know." Yeah, okay. So later that day, my wife gets this text message from Bill, and she just starts laughing. My father-in-law is like, "What's so funny?" Bill just sent me this text message about a 94 240SX convertible for sale. So they had a good laugh. I get home later that day. My wife's like, "Did you get that text message from Bill?" "Yeah, how did you know about that?" "Well, he sent it to me too. My dad wants you to go look at it." Okay, so we went and looked at it, and it's super clean, as you've seen. And he purchased it, and he was perfectly content leaving it stock for the foreseeable future. And it stayed completely bone stock, unmolested, until he went for a ride in my S14, which is SR swapped. And I think at the time I had upgraded the injectors in the MAF and was running about 18 pounds of boost. And he looked over at me and he asked, "Can you make mine fast like that?" I thought you'd never ask, because my wife and I had been scheming. Wouldn't it be funny to do an SR swap in his convertible? Because he stores it at my place in the wintertime. It'd be funny to do a motor swap over a winter and build like a crazy engine and just have it dialed way back. So when he's driving it, it was just putzing around 7 to 10 PSI. And then whenever we wanted to borrow it, we could just go out and crank it up to 11 and rip on it. So I had actually purchased an SR motor set to swap into this car before my father-in-law even asked for it. So then when he asked for it, we ended up actually building a pretty stout engine. And I'll talk about that a little later when I'm showing you the engine. But needless to say, it currently looks completely stock. When you pop the hood, you'd never know that there was anything done to it. It's running 7 pounds of boost, but it's got forged internals and it's all ARP'd and it's balanced and everything. So it scoots pretty good. It's not bad for a daily driver, for a man who's reaching retirement age. But he's gotten quite used to the speed and is not satisfied anymore with how fast it is, and he wants it faster. So in the near future, we'll be getting into this car and seeing what we can wring out of the engine. For the meantime, while we're cruising along here, I'll do a quick pull in just a few minutes, and you can see how quick it is. It's, as you can tell, it sounds pretty quiet. Factory exhaust, factory intake, so it's pretty pretty corked up and muffled at the moment. So I'll readjust the camera. We'll do a quick pull so you can see for yourself. It's no slouch. It's certainly much faster than it used to be with the stock KA. Alright, let's take a look at a couple of the drivetrain details on the FILvert. We've got a S13 SR20 DET engine. It looks fairly stock, but on the inside it is not. It's actually a black top cylinder head, which I'm not really sure what kind of difference that makes. I think the only way you can tell is there's these ribs on the cylinder head that the S13, or I should say that the red top SRs don't have. Internally, as far as I know, they're identical. So I don't know what all the fuss is about black top, red top. But under that cover are a set of Tomei pond cams with BC springs and retainers, factory valves, and then that's clamped to the block with ARP hardware. The block has the original crank and rods, but the rods were align honed and are clamped on with ARP rod bolts, and then Wiseco pistons on top of those. The whole rotating assembly was balanced, and I had the mains align honed with ARP studs as well. So the engine is pretty stout. It should be good for about 400 horsepower, I'd estimate. And hopefully in the not too distant future we might push this setup a little further, but for now we're on a factory S13 turbo, and I'll show you some of the other reasons why this is bottlenecked, but that's part of it. While we're over here, notice the factory heat shield. That's an S13 unit. I tried putting an S14 heat shield on here, but I couldn't get it to fit right. I ended up buying that from Elite JDM along with a few other components, which we'll discuss in a moment. I've got a factory catch can setup that I got from a guy on one of the forums. Let's talk about piping. So this air intake is actually from an R32 GTST that I had laying around for a long time. I think I got it from my buddy Zach with some other stuff. I believe most of the intercooler piping is from a 180SX. I've got a side mount intercooler in here that I got from Elite JDM, and I ordered this whole kit, the side mount intercooler kit, from them, and it came from a 180SX. And the air box is from an S14 Sylvia that I got from a drift company in England. I found it on eBay, and I had them ship it to Rally Nuts to include with an order I got from them, and it all came over together. So I think the cold pipe might be S14. Some of the couplers or pipes might be S13, S14. I really don't remember. So it's kind of just a mashup of all the components I had that I could make fit. You see here, this radiator is actually from an S15 Sylvia. A buddy of mine had one, and he did an upgrade. So I got the hand-me-downs. So it's a copper core Koyo unit and the S15 shroud that covers up the clutch fan. And also, you can see down there, hopefully, that the AC fan is in there. The electric fan that kicks on with the air conditioning unit, that also came with the S15 radiator. I just wired that in. I'm using a Wiring Specialties harness kit, an OEM kit. Worked pretty well. I only had a couple small issues that I had to address. And then over here we've got the KA throttle body and cruise control bracket, and the original cruise, I guess, module setup, whatever you want to call it. So the cruise still works on this. I had to massage this bracket a little bit to get it to line up as good as it does, and it's still not very good. I'd like to continue working on that to get that to line up better. And then when I'm done, I'll unhack it and weld up the parts that I had to cut to get it to work. I think that's everything up top. Let's go underneath. I'll show you a couple components down here. Let's start with the oil pan. You see the sticker on there? It's a brand new OEM part. I went through a couple different oil pans that were either bashed up or leaking, and I had enough and I just bought a new one. Brand new OEM crank pulley also. I got both of those from FR Sport. They supplied me with a lot of OEM parts. You'll notice this drain plug is not factory. That's a Parts Shop Max magnetic drain plug that I also purchased with the oil filter relocation kit. I originally had this set up like factory with the oil filter on the block, and when I did the first oil change on this car, all of the horrible memories of doing oil changes on stock 240s came back, and I said nope, and I got the oil filter relocation kit. I'm using push lock lines and fittings that I got from Summit. It's a similar setup to what I've got on my S14. It works way better on this for some reason than it does on my car, probably because I've taken mine apart several times and this one will never probably come apart. Stainless braided clutch line. Over here is a factory downpipe. I got that from my buddy with the S15 also when he upgraded. And at the turbo it's bolted up with the factory O2 sensor housing, which will probably get changed here in the not too distant future when we do some upgrades and uncork this thing. Test pipe replacing the catalytic converter. I kept the cover to keep it sneaky, and then the cat back is all factory components also. And while you're looking down there, you'll notice that drive shaft is not a factory part. That's one of the other places I decided to compromise on the OEM appearance, because I hate the two-piece drive shafts and that stupid center bearing. And that's attached to an OEM S13 differential that has an old COS clutch type two-way inside of it, so it's a little noisy, but otherwise looks original. Alright, over here we've got 5-lug conversion with Q45 calipers and some cross-drilled and slotted eBay rotors. I think I got these remand calipers from Advance, so they're kind of rusty. They need to be painted. And then there's stainless braided clutch or brake lines back in here. Similar setup in the rear, only it's using S14 brake parts and rotors. You'll notice the S14 wheels. My father-in-law stole my wheels and painted them white. I was kind of skeptical about the white wheels on the white car, but it actually works pretty well. So that's the drivetrain.